Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite to come now to speak Brock Greenfield. Brock is a candidate for public lands and school. Brock is my mentor in many ways. He served as the state executive director of South Dakota Right to Life for a time, and so I've got some big shoes to fill. Give a warm welcome, Brock Greenfield.
Thank you, Dale. I'll start out by saying Dale has filled the shoes that I left behind and then some. He has done a remarkable job, and I'm very thankful, and I know the organization is thankful for all of your efforts. So they do not go unnoticed. Dale has been a stalwart advocate for life and family for a number of years out in Pierre, and we're very blessed to have him at the helm of South Dakota Right to Life. There was something said earlier today, and it reminded me of somebody who's near and dear to a lot of us. You can make a difference, or you can make a statement. And that person chose to make a difference. And some of his family is intertwined in the crowd here. That was Jay Denwald, who was a pro-life legislator for a number of years. And I go back to Hoven with some of my very earliest memories in life. And it was one day, probably in the late 70s, perhaps the early 80s, there was a knock on the door, and it was some people who had been organized by the local Right to Life chapter, of whom Jay was a very active part. And they were out sharing the horror stories, the realities, if you will, of abortion. And I was watching cartoons. It was Saturday morning. But when Mom came back in, I asked her some questions about who it was and so on and so forth, as any kid would. Who was that? What are they up to, you know? And that was my first brush with abortion. And it left an impact on me. Those people were making a difference. And they've continued to. And you people have made a difference, and you continue to. And I'm not here to cast aspersions at anybody. I know that everybody has a voice, and they use that in hopefully the way that God calls them to utilize that voice. My journey in politics, I'll share a little bit with you, but it is 100% because I've taken my lead from the Lord. I was on the board of directors for South Dakota Right to Life, and as Dale mentioned, I was the state director for a time. And I really appreciated every opportunity that I had to share my voice, but I always rested in the Lord. I think of the time when 3 girls were down at the Planned Parenthood booth at the Sioux Empire Fair, and they were I could see them, they were getting ginned up. And they came down to the Right to Life booth. They were loaded for bear. And I'm 6'4" and 300 and some odd pounds. I'm a little smaller now than I was, but I'm still enormous. And those 3 girls, probably juniors, seniors in high school, started in on me. I didn't rise up and hulk over them. I sat there and listened, and then I started to interject a little bit. And I prayed to the Lord that He would speak through me. And I believed that He did. Because as they continued their barrage, the one girl stepped back a little bit and left the other 2 up there. And pretty quick, she steps back in and says, well, I think like he does. And then the other 2 agreed that they too thought like I did. And frankly, it was a God thing. And I'm just really thankful to Him for intervening and sharing or laying up on my heart how to handle that very difficult situation. And so whatever your role is in this ministry, I want to thank you for fulfilling your duty and your responsibility, and I hope that you will be bold. We heard earlier today about not having a spirit of fear. We are to be bold. We are to share our convictions and to stand up for them, because I'll tell you what, Kate Luby was doing that 2 decades ago, and a whole lot of pro-abortion advocates have spread the gospel of death throughout South Dakota, and they have been unapologetic about it. We should share the joy of the culture of life. I know that time is short. I'm running for the office of Commissioner of School and Public Lands. My name is Greenfield. I try to tie green in somehow, some way in all of my wardrobes. But when I was first called to run for office, it was 2000. I was fresh out of college. Dean Anderson called upon me, and he asked me to run for office. And I said, Dean, I thought you were going to. It's a long story, but he assured me he was not running and that he was put in charge by the governor of finding a good candidate. I said, Dean, you've exhausted all options, and now you're coming to me? He said, no, you'll be great, and I'll put a team together. We'll put a team together, and we'll get you elected. I said, I need to pray about it. I need to talk with my family about it. And ultimately, I decided that, yes, I was being led to run. The Lord has intervened a number of times in my political journey. I did not want to run for the House when I was termed out of the Senate, but I did, because that is where the Lord was leading me. 2.5 years ago, I married Kelly. She's here today. Give a little wave. She's very shy, but hey, there we go. And for those of you like Joyce who've known me forever, she does exist. So I know that was always a question. But anyway, the Lord has led us to this point where we've decided that we're running for this office. Now, a couple other things I just want to clear up. Yes, if you're a registered voter, you can be selected for jury duty. Also, if you're a driver, if you have a valid driver's license. So you tell all those people who don't want to register to vote and stand up for what they believe in, they better get rid of their driver's licenses too, because that is a fact. And I also want to share this. Whether you supported Monet earlier or not, whether you're on board 100% with Josh or Brock or Christy or John or whomever, people, I'm here to tell you, the other side doesn't share your values. Not 100% of the time. We have a lot of things that bind us together in South Dakota. But when gubernatorial candidate Smith trotted out one of his most recent commercials, one of his priorities was abortion. That's seldom spoken in South Dakota politics, but that was a common theme last night, too, about how much support there's for abortion in South Dakota. He's wrong. We cannot allow him to prevail. We need to vote our values, and we need to stand up for the candidates who will stand up for our values. With that, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.